All right, welcome back to another Blender training session. Today we're going to look at aligning views. Sometimes this is called work planes in other programs like Modo, but here inside of Blender it's called aligned views. So what are we talking about with this? Well, if we take a look at a project like this, where we've got a fairly complicated building that we've begun to mass out, and if we look at this from our top view, so I'm going to press the 7 key on my numpad to go into my top viewport, and we take a look. We can see here that the entrance to the building is pretty much parallel to the x-axis, and that's good. That means that if we were to drop an object in here and try to align it to the door, we wouldn't have any problem making that change. But off to the right, we have this separate entrance into the building, and that entrance is not lined up to the x, y, and z coordinates. Okay, so if we view this back down from the top again, we can see that that's really at what, maybe almost a 45-degree angle. And so as we're beginning to work, whether we're working on the object itself or maybe we're putting a set of stairs out in front of this, it's really helpful to be aligned to a flat orthographic view. But again, if we were to go into our front view, you can see that that's now skewed and at an angle. So how do we fix that? How do we resolve this so that we can work with this as though it were straight down, looking down the y-axis? Okay. Well, here's how. So the first things first, we're going to click on this object and we will go into edit mode, and I will go ahead and select any polygon that I think is flat. In this particular case, I believe that this particular plane for this window is flat. And so what I want to do is I want to align my viewport so that it's perfectly lined up to the normal. So if I were going to go up here to my transform orientation and click this down to normal, okay, I'd want to line this up so that I was looking down this Z axis here, okay? And if I look at this, our Z axis is traditionally in Blender the up axis, okay? It's the up axis. And so in this particular case, the z-axis is now facing out towards us. And so what I want to do is I want to align so that what is normally z, which is our top, is now sort of facing this direction. All right, so that it's perfectly lined up. So the way that we would do that is we would come up to our view menu, and then we would come over to our align view. And under Align Active View, we have several different options: top, bottom, front, back, left, and right. Well, we know that the z-axis is normally the top. So in this particular case, if we choose top, we're now going to jump so that our viewport is perfectly aligned to that z-axis. And we are now out of perspective mode, and we can see that over here. Our little switch toggle between perspective and orthographic has now been turned off. So that's perspective, and that's orthographic. So now we have a perfectly flat view looking down this axis, okay? And if we wanted to, we could say, well, the y-axis is usually the front, right? That's usually the front. In this case, it's pointing up. So if we go back to our view and we say Align View Active to Front, okay, now we're really looking at the top. But what's happening is it's using that y-axis from the locally selected polygon to choose the orientation. All right, so if we wanted to look down the z-axis here, z is normally top, back, align active, and again top, and that's going to bring us to the front. Okay, so that allows us then to orient our viewport. And let's say we wanted to do that, but maybe we want to view this from the from what again would be the top. Well, that here is the y, and the y is usually in a global coordinate system for Blender is going to be the front view. So let's go ahead and choose that. Yep, that works exactly like we would expect. Now, I want to go out of object mode, or I'm sorry, out of edit mode and back into object mode now. And I want to add in a new object. So let's go to add, and we'll go ahead and say mesh, and maybe we'll do a plane for right now. Okay, that's going to add that right where the 3D cursor is, and we can see that the orientation here is now it's not aligned perfectly to our view, and our current widget transform widgets are now aligned to the normal of the plane. So let's go ahead and set that back to global, just as a start. That doesn't really fix the orientation of this. That's going to be fixed down here when we add the plane. We're going to align this not to the world coordinate system, but to our particular view. And once we do that, it will reorient the plane to this particular viewpoint. And we'll go ahead and let that think about it, and there it goes. Went ahead and fixed that. Okay, so now that we've got that set up, we can also change our view here to transform from this particular view, and then we can go through and use our transforms to scale and to rotate this and to position it exactly like we might want. Okay, and that works pretty well. All right, now the problem with this, of course, is that once we go ahead and do that, if I want to get back to that view that I had again to work on maybe this object, I need to go back and click this object and then go back into edit mode and then realign that view. Well, let's look at the keyboard shortcut for this just to get started. So we go back to the view menu and we come down to align view and we look at align view to active. We have shift numpad 7 and shift control numpad 7. Well, let's stop for just a moment and back up. If we go back out to the viewport and we look at the keyboard shortcuts for the top, the bottom, the front, the back, the left, and the right, it's really numpad 7 for the top and numpad 1 for the front, and then it's the control version of that to flip. So top is numpad 7, bottom is control numpad 7. Okay, so if I wanted to view this from the top, I would just come over and press 7. If I wanted to view it from the front, I would press 1, and then I could hold down the control to view from, let's say, the bottom or from the back. Okay, so 1, control 1, 7, control 7. Okay, that all works just fine. Now, if I want to align this to my view, the keyboard shortcut here is shift numpad 7 or shift control numpad 7, right? So all we're really doing here is adding shift. So if you just remember shift, that will align to the local selected object, all right? In this case, this selected polygon. So if I hit shift 7, that lines that right back. Now the problem here, of course, is that this becomes a little bit clunky because I can now go back to, let's say, object mode and select that plane, but now I want to get back into that other orientation, which means I have to come back to this object and then select here and then go back up to view and align view, and let's say to the front again. That gets us back to the top, and then out of the object mode. You can see this becomes really tedious, right? So this is where being able to store a local view for quick recall becomes really important and very helpful. And there's an easy way to do that. There's an add-on that comes shipped with Blender. So if we go up to our edit menu and go down to preferences, and we go to our add-ons and we do a quick search for stored views. All right, yours will probably be unchecked. You will want to go ahead and check to enable that, and then go ahead and come down and choose to save your preferences. All right, once you do that, over here, so we'll go ahead and click this little widget. This is also the N key to toggle this out. Under our view, all right, we now have an option called stored views. And what we can do if we haven't used this, so let's go ahead and say we turn this off. All right, and then let's turn it back on. The very first time that you turn this on, you're gonna have to initialize it. Don't worry about that, that's totally fine. All right, so click initialize, and then very simply come in and choose save current. All right, so when I choose save current, I now have this view, and I can click in here and rename this. So let's just say cafe top, and now let's go back through into this object, and let's align this to the front. All right, I used the shift numpad 7 to do that, and let's come back in and save current again, and we'll call this cafe front. Okay, now I can go back out of edit mode into object mode. I can select this, let's say, little doormat or path that I'm beginning to work on. And if I want to jump back into the view, I can come back to the top view, or I can come back into the front view and very quickly. So now I'm no longer having to jump back in and out of edit mode. I can go ahead and do that and make my changes. All right. So I hope you found that video helpful. Aligning views can be very, very critical for complex objects. So until next time, happy blending.